Hi everybody, Joe here from SHUTTERSPEAK Photography. Very nice to see your smiling faces again here on YouTube. So I'm sure you've probably heard by now that Sony has announced their latest camera, the A1. And one of the incredible features about the A1 is that it can shoot at 30 frames per second in compressed RAW. And that is really an amazing feature. But I think what a lot of people don't realize is that their Nikon Z camera can also shoot at 30 frames per second and as high as 120 frames per second in a kind of undocumented feature called split-second shots. And it actually has just hit the latest version of the Nikon manual. And there are a few caveats to it, one of which is you're not going to be shooting in RAW. It's JPEG. However, with a couple of quick changes to your camera setting, you can shoot up to 120 frames per second or 60 frames per second or 30 frames per second or a bunch of other options. They're really kind of linked to your video settings. And again, this is not shooting video, this is shooting JPEGs. So I'm going to walk you through how to set that up, and I'll tell you the caveats. And again, it's not RAW photography, these are JPEGs. JPEG fine is what you're going to be left with. But it's a pretty amazing feature, and it's something that is built into your Nikon Z camera. The Z6 II can shoot for 2 seconds at up to 120 frames per second. Z7 II can shoot up to 3 seconds at 120 frames per second. And again, these are amazing features that you might want to take advantage of. One of the examples that Nikon uses is a golf swing, for example, or something along those lines. Any kind of fast motion photography. This is just a fun thing that you can even play around with or give a try to. So hey, before I show you some of the details of this pretty fun feature, I'd like to say thank you for watching. I appreciate you. And if anything in this video helps you out, please help me out by hitting the subscribe button and ring the bell so you get notified of future updates to this channel. I would really appreciate it, and it's something that you can do to help me. That's free. So hey, now that we got that out of the way, let's get started. Let me show you what Nikon has listed in their manual on how to set this up, and we'll talk about it a little bit, and then I'll show you some sample images. So let's get started. Okay, so I'm here in the Nikon manual, and you'll see there is now a section called split-second shots. And this manual refers to the Z6 II and Z7 II. And essentially what it's showing you is here, you can capture images up to 120 frames per second with this feature. So first step to enacting this feature is you need to select movie mode. Okay, so you're going to flip your switch there from stills to movies, and then you're going to set the frame rate. Now the frame rate is going to affect the image size. Okay, so you could theoretically shoot as fast as 120 frames per second at 1920 by 1080, which would result in 2.1 megapixel JPEG images. Okay, so you're getting 2.1 megapixel JPEGs. You're not getting video here. This is shooting stills. Using my Z6 II, I would probably go with 3840 by 2160 at 30 frames per second. That would be the fastest I can go with the Z6 II. Okay, that would give me 30 frames per second of 8.3 megapixel stills. What you need to do is you're going to put your camera in continuous release mode, okay, and then you're going to choose the autofocus area. You're going to go to autofocus continuous and set your focus to autofocus wide area, okay. You can go to M, manual mode, and what they're suggesting here is you adjust your shutter speed, aperture, and ISO, and choose shutter speed of at least 1/1000th of a second for this to work well. So you're pretty much going into a full manual mode here. You're going to focus first and then just press the shutter button down the rest of the way and hold it down. And with your Z7 II, you can take a burst of 3 seconds. Your Z6 II, you can take a burst of 2 seconds. Okay, and you're going to end up with a series of JPEG fine images. Okay, it works really well. The only thing that I will say is you don't even know it's shooting because it doesn't make any sounds. You will see a countdown timer, but that's about it. So again, depending on what camera you have, if you have a Z7 II, you could go up to 60 frames per second at 3840 by 2160. 8.3 megapixel stills would be your end product. Z6 II, 38 by 40, 21 by 60, 30 frames per second, 8.3 megapixel stills, or up to 120 frames per second at 1920 by 1080, 2.1 megapixel JPEG fine images there. You will have the aspect ratio of 16 by 9 on these shots, but again, this is something that's a great thing that's built in. You already have it, and it's just kind of not really out there. No one's talking about it. So go ahead and set this up in your camera, try it out, and use it and have some fun with it. Alright, so I've gone ahead and shot a bunch of frames firing a Nerf gun Ultra just at the couch, just to show you what you can do, for example, with 120 frames per second. Now again, it's 2.1 megapixels still. It's not the greatest. Obviously, you're not going to be using this for commercial work, but it is fun and it's great for social media and anything else that you may be doing that doesn't require a high resolution photo. So let's just step through this and look how fun this is. I'm just going to go ahead and just step through photos so you can actually see these JPEGs and see how the camera actually captures the motion of these darts coming out of the Nerf gun Ultra, which I believe these darts are traveling somewhere in around the range of about 90 feet per second. So they're traveling pretty fast, and you can just see the motion. I mean, you can capture the entire way. Okay, so let's look at this next sequence. There it is. Look at the dart leaving the gun, traveling through the air. Look how many frames we captured. And again, like I said, somewhere probably in the range of about 90 feet per second. Pretty amazing. I mean, it really is. Now, this just can be a lot of fun. Now, obviously, you got to have great lighting to do something like this. You're going to have to have a lot of light. I think this was shot at ISO 800. Yeah, in fact, you can see it up there on the screen. 1/1000th of a second, f2.8 at ISO 800 at 24 millimeter. And again, you know, we're obviously catching a pretty small file here, 2.1 megapixel. So let's see what we can do with it. Actually, that would be at 100. Let's look at it at 200 and see how it holds up. Not bad, really. And 300, even at 300, it's still pretty good. And again, it's 2.1 megapixel. You can see a little bit of banding in here, but hey, what are you going to do, right? But overall, that's just a lot of fun. So let's take a look at the 4K, which would give us the 8.3 megapixel still at 30 frames per second. Okay, so here are the 4K images. So this is 8.3 megapixels again. Now we are at the 30 frame per second setup here, and let's just go through these a little bit. Let's see where the dart actually leaves the gun. We got to give, there's the first dart. So obviously at 30 frames per second, we're not capturing as much, but it's still pretty darn cool. Let's see when the next one leaves the gun. Again, these 4Ks do have to load a little bit. So, all right, there we have. It's in the gun. We see it just coming out of the gun. It's in the air, and then it strikes and flips. And again, pretty neat. So let's take a look just at what we can do now when we're looking at this 4K image, and let's look at it at 100. So that's at 100%. Let's take a look at it at 200% and 300. So these 4K images obviously hold up a lot better. They look pretty nice. That's 100%, and it won't fit on my screen, so we're gonna have to bump it down a little bit. So, all right, there you go. I mean, obviously, again, like I said, these 4K images at 8.3 megapixel look a lot nicer, and so that's why I really kind of recommend going with this over the 1080. But if you needed that 120 frames per second, obviously it's going to give you a lot more frames, and we did see more of the dart in flight at the 120, as we would expect. but the image quality of these JPEGs just holds up better here at this 30 frames with the 4K, and obviously we can zoom in a lot better. We have a lot more to play with. Now, just by way of comparison, again, I've shot for the press, I've shot professional sports, I've shot the National Hockey League. When I first started shooting the National Hockey League, I was shooting with a Nikon D3S, which shot at 12.3 megapixels, and that was fine for the press, and everybody was happy as can be, and that was state of the art, and we made great images. So yeah, that's a little bit less, 8.3 megapixel, but still, even 8.3 megapixel is still a pretty good file size. And it's not RAW, it is JPEG, but this is something that is usable, and it's really a great feature that just nobody's talking about. All right, folks, so there you have it. That's how to use your Nikon Z camera at 120 frames per second. Like I said, much better option though is that 4K at 30 frames. And if you have a Z7 II, you can do up to 60 frames per second. That's where I would be. Again, you know, if I had my choice, I would definitely choose those higher file sizes. They just look a little bit better. You get a little bit more room to play with. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you find it helpful. Please do me a favor. Let me know in the comments, did you even know that this existed? Because I sure didn't. I just found out about it, and it's pretty amazing, and it's something that Nikon really doesn't talk about, and I think they should be. So let me know. Did you know about this? Did you not know about it? Is it blowing your mind like it did me when I first heard about it? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. Please do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Like I said, leave me a comment. Let me know what you thought, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks, YouTube. Bye-bye.